It is my privilege and joy that we can continue our Bible study about God's love and justice. And today we have the subtitle, Love and Justice, the Two Commandments. The Ten Commandments regulate the need to love. And one day a certain man came to Jesus and asked him, Master, which is the great commandment in the law? And he might have asked which of the 10 commandments is the greatest, but Jesus answered to him and said, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment. Love God. Then he adds, and the second is like unto it. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. So there is something that included everything. And these are these two commandments. Love God and love the neighbor. Is it simple? It looks simple. Yet it is most important to understand how will you apply this. Since it's a spiritual thing, you need to understand how to apply it. And as it is, you can understand it or misunderstand it, and then you will apply it the wrong way. And what a terrible result would it be if that what sounds so simple is there and you misunderstand it. So the how to interpret and apply these things is most important. And so there are two ways to interpret this. I have the capacity to love God in order to give him love, or the capacity to love the humans in order to give them love. That's the one way to interpret the sayings, the 10 Commandments and the sayings of Jesus. And there is another one that says, yes, I am a channel. I love God, taking love from him, and I love my neighbor by imparting to give him what I took from God. So those are the two options, the two possibilities. Which one is right and which one is an impossibility? This is the reality, because everything that God created is a creature of God, is a channel, and must first take in order to give. There is no exception on that, as we will see once more later. And this other one is impossible. And it comes from the deception that we believe we are gods. And since this whole is very subtle, since at the bottom we might not see the reality of the two, we need to have clarity in our reason about them. So I learned a lot from the physical, applying it to the spiritual. Human abilities do not include the object that needs to be used. So the ability to breathe does not include the oxygen. The ability to eat does not include the food. The ability to drink does not include the water or any drink. The ability to love does not include love. All must come from a source. So we need to take it from a source. It's not possible to do it out of you. Now, on the physical level, we are all clear. I know I have no water in my capacity to drink. I must have the water and the capacity to drink comes together, it's fulfilled. But on spiritual level, since we are all in the self-deception, there is this very deep belief that love, the capacity to love, includes also love. And this is seen in all the theological explanations. It's amazing how all people, the religious and the non-religious, the Bible reader, not the Bible reader, believe that in the capacity to love, there exists love. So let's see. evil and injustice did not arise from the desire to break the law. Lucifer didn't want to break the law, neither, he did not know about it, neither Adam and Eve, but arose from an inner process of change in his nature. So from a creature, from a channel, he wanted to become a God, an origin, a creator. No channel anymore. This attempt was an impossibility. And out of this impossible attempt, by the imaginary change, which is not possible, but it's just a self-deception, that led to the breaking of the law, because the law specifies how and from where the need must be met. And you need love, but you need to take it in order to give it. Now, being not anymore a channel, being an origin where you don't need to take, you just give, because you give from yourself. But unfortunately, then you want to receive, which is not possible, because that's the action of another one. And this is what we call selfishness or egoism. These are the two ways to think. In the truth, for every action, you must have two deeds. Or for every deed, you must have two actions. The taking and the giving. There is nothing in all the creature of God that is not similar, the same. In the deception, of course, you just give because you give it from yourself. You don't need to take. And then you want to receive. So in the deception, love is just giving, which is impossible. And you can see all the theologians and even psychologists and all these people that say, yes, it's selfishness to give in order to receive, but it's love if you just give. Well, but from where do you give? If you think that you at every time you can give anything from yourself, then that's the deception. Because there is no way. Even if you try to say, oh, I give for free. In the deception, you always want to receive. And every human problem that I have seen in all these 21 years speaking with my patients is because of the receiving. That is what the others are doing or not doing. To them, that's their problem. So, when I speak with people and I make them clear that nothing is theirs, nothing comes from themselves. Like I shared last time, the couple that lost the pregnancy, it's not yours. But some people come and say, well, I worked for the house, now it has been burned. I worked, I gave my time, I gave my money. Are they not mine? Well, they could be only yours if they came out of yourself. Because in order to do something, you use always the means of God. You need to breathe, you need to eat, you need to drink, you need to sleep. All those are the means that you first take in order then to do something. But in the deception, you believe you do it from yourself, for yourself. And this is a terrible deception. And if we don't see it, we will end up where we don't want to end up. So let us make that very clear. There is nothing that you ever can give that does come from you. Now some people, I just heard this last time when we were in a group of Bible studies, and the man said, but look, Jesus says, give to Caesar what is Caesar's, and give to God what is God's. And I said, well, how do you understand the text? For me, it's very clear. Jesus shows you the coin, that it's Caesar's coin. So how much do you give to Caesar? Well, just what is Caesar's. So how much do you give to God except what is God's? However, so let us be very clear. Egoism, selfishness is the result of the impossible endeavor to make something from oneself and for oneself. It's totally impossible. But we believe, we think it is so. So, through ignorance of the law, everyone out of the error of his heart believes this. When he hears the word of God, the 10 Commandments, or the words of Jesus to love God, he automatically thinks God asks something from him to give him. And then when you hear to love your neighbor, then you automatically believe, I have to give him also something. So you are the supplier both for God and both for your neighbor. You need always to give because this is your destiny. If you want to be saved, then give love to God. And if you want to have good relationships, then give love to your neighbor. In the whole lectures that we had this quarter, you will see that the way they were presented was to give love to God, because love is something you give freely. Oh yes, at the exit, sure. But what can you give love, what is not yours? So from this perspective, we read the Bible. From this perspective, we understand the 10 Commandments and the 2 commandments that God and Jesus gave to this man. And from this perspective, we do everything to please God and to please our neighbor. And what happens with you now? You just give. I saw people exhausted because they said they're in the work of God, they're in the work of God. Well, if you work in the work of God, how much do you give from yourself? How much power do you have from you? You just use the power. But if you don't need to give God nothing from yourself because you just take from God, then you never get frustrated. Oh, I have to read my Bible, I have to do this, I have to do that, so that God is pleased with me. And then, of course, I have children, I have a husband, I have a wife. I have to do something that they should be happy with me and accept me and love me. And so people are exhausted. This is the cause for every disease and for every burnout. Because you give. You're not aware that you're in a great, terrible deception. Because you believe unconsciously, and maybe even consciously, that you give from where? That is, from me, which is by all means impossible to give God something from yourself, and it's impossible to give to the human something from yourself. It is just not possible. It's an illusion, because we are channels. Now imagine what and how great this problem in the human life is. How terrible this deception we live in. How can God help us to see it? If we don't see it, there is no way to be saved. Let's look to Matthew 7. Here Jesus says in verse 22, "Many will say unto me that day," that is the day of judgment, "Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name? And in thy name have cast out devils? And in thy name done many wonderful works?" So in the last thing, he includes every good work that you have ever done in your life. And what is the response of Jesus? Now, if you read even the Bible verse before 21, we might see what Jesus wants to say in reality. He says, verse 21, "Not everyone that says unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of God of heaven, but he that doth the will of my Father which is in heaven. Now, what is the will of the Father? Is it not the will of the Father to heal the sick? To prophesy in His name? Is it not the will of the Father to cast out the devils or to do many wonderful works? Is that not the will of the Father? Because you see, they don't do anything obviously wrong. But Jesus says to them, and then I will profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity. You are the breaker of the law. So, the deception to do the evil is obviously evil. So if you steal, if you lie, if you know all those things, you know that something is wrong. But when you do all right, when you work, when you live a life like the rich young ruler, that really is doing all those things that are required in the precept of the law, he might have been very faithful to his wife. He might have not done anything he thought was wrong. He might have been very particular in paying his tithe and in his cleanness, in his clothes. Very particular, very clear, doing all accordingly. And then you arrive at the gates of heaven. And God says, sorry, what's your name? I don't know you. But Lord, please, did I not do all these things? You say I'm a worker of iniquity? Tell me when. What was wrong in what I did? Well, it was very simple, wrong. All you did was because you did it in your idea, in your deception that you do it out of yourself. That your life is your life. That you gave it in order to gain something. Because you were not mine. You did it all for yourself. And in the deception, there is no way to enter heaven. This is the breaking of the law. And it does not look like it, does it? Oh, that we might understand that things, even though they're very simple, one wrong perspective will destroy everything. One wrong perspective. So let us then know it's not the work we do. It is out of whom are we doing them. Who is our reference as we do them? So there are two decisive things that we need to know. The knowledge of the general structure of a living being. This is basically for everyone to know. Everything has an entrance and everything has an exit. That is absolute, and no one can change this. And then the law that governs all creatures, because all creatures are identical in their function. That's the law that says before you can do something, you need to take. But you were not made to take, but you were made to give. So this simple understanding of structure and law gives me clarity and balance in my life. Is it a great knowledge? I think the knowledge is great, but is it a great philosophy? Do you need to study a lot? No. It's simple. It opens up our eyes. It makes things clear. And it governs us very well, because it's general for every case. Now, also God said from where we have to fulfill our needs. And our first need is love, so that we need and can only take from God. And the next is we do something for others or impart that love with others at the exit of our lives. So that is very, very simple. But it is a clear order. What I take, I cannot give. And what I give, I cannot take. I don't need to expect anything because, for me, I can expect things, but I cannot expect anything to receive back because I didn't give anything from me. I can expect that things should grow, that things should be done, but if I do it and expect it from me, I'm in a prison and will be in deception. So once again, the relationship between justice and love. Since the Spirit is also channeled, the Creator has determined that it can only function with love. So here is the Spirit and here is His means by which He works. That is why the Spirit has the ability to love. But we have seen that love, the ability to love, does not include love. The law specifies how I take love in order to give it, and from where, and where to give it. So I take it from God, that God made to be an automatism because there's no choice. Here, that's why it's unconscious to us, and it was also unconscious to the angels, because there's no alternative. I can never give anything that I don't take first. So everything we can see in nature, especially with our multiplication, we will see that a human baby, when it is conceived, it must connect to the mother's womb for physical and to the mother's spirit for spiritual input. It could not do this without connecting. The connecting is an automatism. Life could not exist without this automatism. So that's why it must. Since there's no choice, it is unconscious. However, when Adam was created and when we get to understand things, at the exit, we exercise intentionally and consciously the love that we give to the neighbor, to the humans and the environment. So that we can do consciously. As of course, even the children do it unconsciously for a while, but when we get older, we need to become responsible. Do I do this like this or not? Because it's all what I take from God. Love and justice are connected inseparably together. But where? Outside of us or inside of us? Now, love without exercising it doesn't make any sense. And justice without doing it, again, makes no sense. That's why the connection of both of them is in us, in our spirit. We combine them. If we use God's love, he who puts God's love into practice is just. That's how it is. So in us, we fulfill love and justice. So I am very glad that things are very simple. And I also think, I hope, easy to be understood. So nothing that you can do out of the love of God can be wrong. Everything is right. And as long as the human were connected to God, everything was fine. So what changed? It was the Spirit in himself that changed, that came into that illusion he could be God. And this is why he's separate from God. That's how he cannot take love anymore from God. And so what comes out? That's what comes in. He now lives from human. He lives from the words of humans. He is not anymore free. This is an unjust man. Those who do not practice the love of God are unjust. They break the law because they cannot take love from God. So those who persist in self-deception are unrighteous in everything they do, even if it seems good. So we have read it, we've seen it. 1 Corinthians 13 says, you can even give your life, you can give all your goods, you can have all the knowledge. But if you do it not out of God, then it is condemnable. It will help you nothing. That's why to become righteous, the lie about me must be replaced by the truth about me. So this needs to be replaced. I can do no righteous act out of this that people believe they can do, like the rich young ruler did or no. So that's why I need to change that, because here lies the fulfilling or the incapacity of love. So the cable that connects humans to the source of love lies in the human spirit. It's either that connects me to God, or either that connects me to humans. So it is in us. It's part of the structure. It is not subject to the will because God made it to be so. And it is passed on through the law of inheritance. Adam was created with this. We are born with this. And this has to be changed in order for us to be connected to God. We need to become children of God for that. Now, at the end, we have the parable of the Good Samaritan. How do you test the connecting cable? We all know this parable, and it's very simple. It has a lot of information. There are two men that should have the right cable, the priest and the Levite. But when they see the suffering, they pass him by. They come close to him. It's the neighbor. They know the law. But why did they not keep it? Why does a Samaritan, a non-Jewish or a half, come to see the man, helps him, and we know the end of the story? So, for whom did Jesus tell this parable? Because they were listening to him, the good ones, the priests, the Levites. What did they prove? They proved that when they saw the need, they was just concerned about themselves. Now, we cannot look to motivation. And we have seen that we could do good things, and we cannot look to the Samaritan's insight, but evidently he was the one that was close to fulfill the law because he was the right neighbor. So let us check ourselves, because we all were endowed with the ability to help, especially females more than men. But we all have the need to help. So when we see something, when we hear that someone is in need, then we need to do that consciously and see how we fulfill that. And we have a yes and a no. We have to know how to do things. But as long as we do good things, we might not be very aware what's the cable. We need to know everything good we do. It must come out of God's means, not mine. And this we must be very conscious of. Because unconsciously we just will help, like with the drive, not knowing that we are doing it from the wrong identity, from the wrong cable. So maybe prove ourselves. Seek to see. The evident evil is evident, but the good that comes out of selfishness is not evident. And we don't want to neither go that wrong way, to do the evident evil, but we don't want to be on the other side, doing the good out of our selfishness. May we prove ourselves. May we go to God and say, Lord, help me to see. And He will help us so that day when we meet our Lord, He may see us and say, I know you. You're mine. And not the other most terrible words. I don't know you. You have the wrong cable. You have the wrong identity. There's no place for you because you can only work iniquity. May we be among the first ones, not those that I mentioned last. God help us. Amen.